I don't want to set the world on fire.
Hey everyone, Violet Irwin here. It's time for another Car Confessional. In today's Car Confessional, I'm going to continue on with my Property Manifesto, and specifically, and as those of you who've been following this series can probably guess, this episode is going to be about property of body. And I'm so excited that I finally got to property of body, because real property and personal property, while they're important and fundamental to the understanding of my philosophy, it's not as exciting or as interesting as property of body. And part of the reason for that is that property of body is actually a novel idea. That is a phrase that I have coined myself. I hope it'll catch on. But prior to this recording, no one has memorialized the idea of property of body. So I'm so excited to be able to come and do that with you here today. So let's get right into it. As I did in the previous videos, I'm going to talk about the bundle of sticks as it pertains to one's own body. But before I talk about the bundle of sticks, I first have to make an argument as to why you own your body, right? I have to justify that claim. Fair enough. So, why do you own your body? For a lot of us, this might be kind of an intuitive thing. Of course I own my body. Why would you even question it? But for the purpose of this, I think we need to be specific and say, why do you own your body? So there's a couple reasons why I would argue you own your body. The first of which is relatively straightforward, is that your consciousness and your body are connected, right? Your consciousness and your body cannot be separated from each other. So there's no way, at least at the time of this recording, to supplant your consciousness into another's body, right? Your experience of seeing the world and taking the world, walking through this world, all your emotions, your thoughts, your passions, right? Your mind, your property of mind, as it were, is intimately and permanently attached to your body. In my mind, the fact that these two things are intimately intertwined suggests that the only person who could exercise the right to control your body is you, right? De facto. No one else can have that stick in the bundle, right? Because your consciousness is what controls your body. And admittedly, this is at the time of this recording. I'm not saying that there can't be some future technology in which an individual could manage to gain control of someone else's body somehow. You know, there could be some technology where someone else's consciousness could all of a sudden control someone's robo-arm or something weird like that. But at the time of this recording, there is no way to transfer your consciousness into another person's body, nor is there any way for another person's consciousness to exercise control over the actual actions of your body. Now, obviously, there's instances where people are forcing your body to do certain things, like in a rape or whatever, but that would actually be a violation of your property of body, right? Because in those instances, someone else is forcing you to do with your body that which you did not approve of or agree to, right? But the main point is that your consciousness and your body are intimately intertwined. They can't be separated. And I think that's a pretty compelling argument to say that your consciousness is the owner of your body, because your consciousness is the only entity that's capable of exercising the right to control it. So that's one. The other thing is, and this is kind of just a question, which I know is not a typical argument, but who else owns your body if not you, right? I think it's almost impossible to make an argument that anybody else owns your body absent someone who has purchased a human in some kind of servitude situation, which I would argue is a violation of your property of body, right? But the point is that no one owns your body but you. And I think that's pretty clear. This is the case in our court system too, because the whole idea of a health power of attorney is that unless you decide to give someone else that authority, you're the only one who gets to make decisions about your health. And in effect, that's the same thing as saying you're the only one who gets to exercise control over your property of body, right? So no one else has that right. And while we've never explicitly stated that there's a property of body, it is acknowledged in effect in that way, right? You're the only one who has decisions about your body. It's true. So if you don't own your body, who does? No one. It's yours. And the third and last reason why I think it's fair to argue that you own your body is because you are your body, right? You're your consciousness, but part of you is your body. So I would argue that you own that which is literally you, right? Do I not own my hands? Do I not own my face? Who else, you know? Do I not own my hair on my head? Of course I do. It's my body. It is me. My hair is me. My hands are me. My face is me, right? Those are 3 reasons why I really do think that you own your body. And given that you own your body, and frankly, we all kind of know that you do because we even say your own body. Like the word own often is connected to your body, right? So your own body is yours as a matter of ownership, right? So now that we've established that you own your body, what does that ownership mean? And that's why it's so important that I went through the real property and the personal property bundle of sticks, because now that we understand that in terms of the context of land or chattels, as it were, we can apply that to someone's body. So let's do that now. Let's go through the bundle of sticks and see what conclusions we reach, and we'll get to discuss some kind of fun, hot button issues in the process. So this will be a lot of fun. As you'll recall from my previous videos, the first stick in the bundle is the right to possess. And I think this is pretty clear based on my whole argument as to why you own your body, that, you know, the right to possess is pretty inherent in your ownership of your body. You can't not possess it. You literally can't not possess your body because your consciousness is attached to it. So the right to possess in this instance isn't even something that necessarily requires protection, because the right to possess is so inherent in the ownership that it's actually impossible to separate your right to possess from the consciousness. But if you want to think about the right to possess, not necessarily in terms of consciousness, but literally just in terms of someone possessing your body as something that exists on Earth, right? That's kind of a different issue, but we see that that's already punishable to try to possess someone else's body, right? And I'm sure you all know where I'm going with this, but it's called kidnapping, or false imprisonment, right? Or slavery, yeah? So you can't own someone else's body. You can't possess someone else's body. You can't put a human in a cage and possess their body. That's a violation of their property of body. And this is one of the things that's so amazing to me about these new terms that I've created, because people inherently know that kidnapping is bad. People inherently know that imprisoning someone against their will is bad. But I think this is one of the first times that we've really articulated one of the reasons why it's so bad. It's because it's a property rights violation, right? Kidnapping is a violation of someone's property of body right to possess. Amazing stuff. Sorry, I know I get too excited about it. But, so that's the right to possess in terms of property of body, okay? So no kidnapping, no false imprisonment, no slavery, you know, all those go to the right to possess your body. Now, the second one is the right to control. Now, the right to control, as I mentioned previously, is very much inherent too, because of the same thing. Your consciousness and your body are connected. So, for more examples, like athletes, musicians, any of those, all of them are exercising their right to control their body to produce something else that's entertaining for us, right? Like a football player is using his property of body to throw the ball or to catch the ball or, you know, to run down the field. All of that is use of the right to control your body. Similarly, a musician who's playing the piano, a chef who's making a great meal, you know, pretty much anything that humans do with their body is the right to control it. Even stuff like taking care of your teeth and brushing it, and you know, how you do your hair, and you know, this if you want to have tattoos, or if you want to get piercings, or whatever kind of clothes you want to wear. I mean, the right to control your body is so wide sweeping. I mean, even driving this car is me exercising my right to control my body, because I'm using my hands, I'm using my feet, right? I'm using my eyes to look forward. This is all the right to control. So I'm going to do the right to exclude next, and I'm really glad that we got to the right to exclude, because there's a lot packed into this, especially in terms of the body. So, the right to exclude from the body. Let's talk about some basics in terms of the right to exclude, okay? Like rape. And the reason why I want to start with rape is because it's a clear, I mean, and I know it's kind of a gruesome image, but it's a clear image of someone literally entering your body against your will, right? And you have a right to exclude from your body. Just like you have a right to kick off someone who's trespassing from your land, and just like you have a right to decide who kind of touches or does anything with your personal property, you also have a right to exclude from your body that which you don't want in there. And I know that a lot of people will say, oh, what about abortion, right? And trust me, I've got a lot of thoughts on abortion and this particular issue, but it is such a complicated area in this regard that I'm going to save it for another video, okay? But I promise you, there's going to be a great video on abortion and property of body, okay? One of the reasons why I've been trying to plow through these basics is so I can start releasing some of these videos on the more hot topics like abortion, okay? So I'm not going to get into abortion. It's a more complex issue because there's another entity in the body that's at stake. But the instance of rape is super clear. It's a de facto violation of the right to exclude from your property of body, and it is such a gross violation that it's among, you know, the most vilified crimes that exist. And you know why? I mean, think about it. It's like, if there's penalties for trespassing on land or trespassing into like personal property like chattels, right? Trespassing into a human body is just, I mean, that's why, you know, I kind of started from the most distant to the most intimate property right. As you get to the most intimate property right, the violations are more and more egregious once you start violating the rights in those bundle of sticks. So violating the right to exclude from your body is more egregious than violating the right to exclude from your home, because it's a more intimate kind of property right. And we can all feel that. Like, rape gets all of us to the core, right? We just all know deep down that that is just wrong. It is just wrong to force yourself into someone else's body. We all know that inherently, and that's the most clear example of the right to exclude from your body. And I want to just talk about briefly some other examples of the right to exclude your body that a lot of people don't think about. And the first of these is what the TSA does, and it outrages me so much. Like, every time I go to the airport, I just get so pissed off because I hate the TSA so much. But you know how they've started these, I mean, it's not that recently, but over the last like 5 years or so, they've started these new machines where you have to go in and you put your hands over your head and they do the scan. To me, this is a violation of my property of body, okay? They don't have a search warrant, and they are scanning the inside of my body to see what's in there. They don't have a warrant. What right do they have to go into my body? I have a right to exclude them from my body. What happens inside of your house is private, right? And it's the same thing here. What's happening inside of my body is private. And unless the TSA has a warrant, they don't get to know what's inside of my body. So all those body scanning things at the airport that the TSA uses, total violation of the right to exclude. Total violation of it, okay? And then the third thing I want to talk about in terms of just the right to exclude from property of body here is sort of this new move with transgenderism that has been going on that says, like, if you are not into a trans person, then that's bigotry in some fashion. And I did discuss that somewhat briefly in another video. But the reason I bring it up again is because that is a violation of your right to exclude from your body. Your ability to discriminate in terms of your sexual preferences is you exercising your right to exclude from your property of body, right? Because if you're gonna have an intimate relationship with someone, that implies entry into your body. And you have a right to decide who enters in there. And frankly, even if you're racist, even if you are a bigot, it doesn't mean that you can't exclude people from your body. The fact that you have views that most of us would view abhorrent does not mean that we get to come in and violate your inherent property right in your property of body. The right to discriminate in terms of your sexual preferences is the ultimate expression of the right to exclude from your body, because you get to choose who you kiss, who you hug, who you let actually inside, and all of that. That's all you exercising your right to exclude. And it's perfectly reasonable. It is not bigoted to exercise your right to exclude from your body. It's your body. You own it. You can decide who has entry to it. One other thing I want to talk about too, in terms of the right to exclude with your property of body, is the Second Amendment. So, in the real property video, I discussed at length why the Second Amendment is related to the right to exclude from your real property. So it's pretty easy to see how that right to exclude in terms of the Second Amendment can transfer from real property to your property of body. But I'll explain it anyway, just because it needs to be memorialized in video at some point, right? So in terms of the Second Amendment, you have a right to exclude from your body, which means that if someone's attacking you, trying to shoot you, trying to stab you, trying to punch you, right? You have a right to exclude them from doing that to your body, right? So, what does that really mean? That means you have a right to self-defense, okay? The right to exclude from your property of body is the same as your right to self-defense. It's the exact same thing. We just have been trying to figure out the right way to phrase this for so long, and no one's really understood that this is really a property right. So, think about it. Let's say you're walking down the street, a robber comes up, he puts a gun in your face and says, you know, give me your wallet, right? In that moment, first of all, in terms of your personal property, you have a right to exclude from him taking your personal property, so he can't take your purse, that's yours. But more importantly, in terms of your property of body, you have a right to exclude that bullet from hitting your body. So if you're lucky enough to be in a concealed carry state, or a state where you can actually get a pistol for self-defense, in that instance, since he pointed a gun in your face, you have every right to take out a gun and take that guy down. That's your Second Amendment right. That person threatened you with lethal force, and that lethal force, in effect, is an attempted violation of your right to exclude from your property of body. And the fact that they're trying to do it with lethal force means that you can retaliate with lethal force. Because the fact that they're trying to do something lethal to your body means that you can retaliate with equal force, right? That's reasonable force, it's equal to the amount exerted against you. So you can whip out a gun and take that robber down right then and there. That is your right to exclude from your body, period. Don't let anyone tell you, ever, that the Second Amendment is just some crap that, you know, Americans made up because we're obsessed with guns. Not true. The Second Amendment is a right to self-defense, which is really your right to exclude from your body. That's what the Second Amendment is. And it's particularly important for women because we have our right to exclude from our body whether we're weak or strong, but it's certainly harder to exercise the right to exclude without the potential of having a firearm. I mean, like I talked about previously with rape, you know, to prevent a rape, it's really hard as a woman to get a man off of you if he's trying to do that. But if you have a gun, you can actually effectively exercise your right to exclude from your body. I mean, this should be the biggest women's rights issue of our time because they're trying to take away the great equalizer. They're trying to take away our mechanism for protecting our property of body as women. We've got to fight it. Guns rights are a women's rights issue and also a property rights issue, and we've got to fight for it, you know? I'm never gonna turn in my weapons to the federal government, even if they change the law. I'm not gonna do it, because that is my right to self-defense, and no government gets to take that away. Because it's my property of body, and I can exclude whomever I want from it. So, that's the right to exclude. Now, the right to enjoy has a whole bunch of crap that I want to talk about, and specifically, and this also gets into the right to destroy as well, but what I want to talk about first in terms of the right to enjoy is the drug war, because this is the most egregious violation of an individual's right to enjoy their property of body that I can even fathom, okay? Especially coupled with what the FDA does, right? So, as a basic matter, the right to enjoy your body means not only can you consume whatever you want, or drink whatever you want, but you can also do drugs, you can also dance, you can also, you know, have sexual escapades. These are all your rights, because your body is yours to enjoy, okay? So, for us to outlaw specific kinds of drugs as too dangerous, quote unquote, we are violating someone's right to enjoy their body, okay? And I'll get into the whole idea of, oh, it's dangerous or whatever with the right to destroy, but the thing here is, whether it's dangerous or not, isn't really relevant unless you're talking about danger you're causing to somebody else. And actually, I think I'll mention at least the right to destroy here briefly, because it is important. And the thing is, you have the right to destroy your body. You have a right to destroy your house. You have a right to destroy your personal possessions, so you have a right to destroy your body. And personally, I would never do heroin. I would never do meth, right? But some people view that as enjoyable, and they have a right to enjoy their body, and they have a right to destroy their body. So if they view that as enjoyable and it harms them, they still have a right to do it. It's their property of body. It's their body. There is no libertarian basis for the government to come in and say, oh, we don't think that this is good for your body, and we're going to decide that you're not allowed to enjoy your body in this particular way. There is no fundamental legal basis for that, especially in our Constitution. I mean, the idea that the government has any authority to regulate what you consume is just wild to me. Where do they think they have this authority? It's your body. You get to enjoy it the way you want, and if you want to destroy it, that's on you, right? And the drugs, people get a little bit, you know, messed up about drugs, because drugs can destroy lives, but it's clear that our society is okay with most of the enjoyment of body, even to the detriment of the body, because think about it. Think about soda, right? Soda is something that a lot of people enjoy. I would never try to prevent them from enjoying it, but the amount of sugar in there is so bad for you, right? Why, like, people aren't trying to ban soda. It's because most people would say, hey, who the hell are you to tell me that I can't have a soda? Right? I mean, even some of my most crazy conservative pro-drug war types would still say that you can't ban soda because it's my right to choose what kind of beverage I want to drink, right? And I think this is why, like, people will ask, why is Ron Paul so obsessed with this raw milk thing or with the drug war? Like, why do libertarians care about this? And it's because it is just such a blatant violation of our right to enjoy and our right to destroy our bodies. You know? How can we say we're a free country if I can't even choose to drink raw milk? Right? Like, it's federally illegal for me to go to a local farmer and buy raw milk and then drink it. How are we gonna say we're a free country? It's bullshit, right? So, that's the huge thing. And I want to talk about the FDA for a moment too, because while the drugs, it's like, yeah, you know, it's a hotter topic issue because heroin and all that does ruin lives, but we let people ruin their lives with alcohol. Doesn't really seem to be a problem there. Why is it okay to drink alcohol? Because, as most people would say, who the hell are you to tell me I can't have a beer? So who the hell are you to tell anyone they can't have a joint or that they can't smoke meth? You're not. It's not your body. It's not your personal property in the drugs. So you have no say in it. And that's the key, right? But I can at least understand why some people get more hot about, like, you know, illegal drugs that are currently illegal, because yeah, they really fuck with your body. But it doesn't matter. To me, that's irrelevant, because you have a right to destroy your body, right? But what I can't even see a justification for or an argument for is some of the stuff that the FDA is currently doing, okay? Which is, there are certain drugs that have not been FDA approved, but may show some promising results in initial trials that people might want to give a try if they're fatally ill, okay? And the federal government has been coming in and saying, no, I don't care if you're terminal, if you got a terminal illness without a cure, you can't even try an experimental drug. And to me, this is just so egregiously awful. Like, to tell someone who's dying of a terminal disease that they can't even try a drug that might help them because the FDA hasn't approved it, it's like, fuck you guys. This is my life. I'm gonna die either way, right? And if I wanna roll the dice and take a medication that you guys haven't approved, that's my call. It's my call to consume it. It's my call to take the risk with destroying my body. And it's my call to try to keep my body living as long as possible, right? That's on me. I have the right to do that. And frankly, I don't think it should be even for terminal illnesses. I think that if you're sick in any fashion and there is a medication that you think could help you, you should be allowed to take it, period. If you want to try a drug that you think could save your life, or even not just save your life, but make your life better, then you should be able to do that. It's your right in your body. Now, with that being said, there's potential consequences that go along with taking experimental drugs, and you can't later say, oh, well, the government now has to compensate me for this risk I took. So there's really only two options here. Either the government says, we're gonna control everything that you consume, we're gonna decide what it is, and we'll bear the brunt of it, or the better option, in my opinion, is that we take some risks on it as a society, but it's up to us what we consume, and it's up to us what we're gonna do to try to better ourselves and better our own bodies and to heal ourselves and to enjoy ourselves. I've talked a lot about kind of the right to enjoy and the right to destroy together in terms of drugs and in terms of, you know, eating whatever you want, even if it's bad for you. But I want to talk about the right to destroy now more specifically and in isolation, because there's two big issues here that I think are important to focus on. The first with the right to destroy is suicide. And I do think that you have a right to commit suicide, okay? A lot of other Christians probably will disagree with me on this, but the reason I say that is, first of all, you have a right to destroy your body. That's the biggest thing. So if you want to jump off of a bridge, it's your body to destroy. I'll try to convince you out of doing that, but I don't think it should be punishable to do that. It's your body, you own it, no one else does. So to the extent that you're destroying property, you know, is it good to destroy property? I mean, that's kind of a value call, but in my opinion, it's your property to be destroyed. Just like I could burn a diary, or I could burn my land or whatever, so too can a man burn his own body. And I think that this is important too. I mean, I talked about the right to control, but this is also important too in terms of things like piercings and tattoos and other stuff like that, because in effect, like piercing these holes in my ears or piercing my nose like I did, and I actually have a belly button piercing too, but to do any of that, I have to be able to use my right to destroy and my property of body, right? Because I am destroying parts of my body. I am. there's no other way to put it. And that gets me into the second big issue that I wanted to talk about with the right to destroy, which is transgender rights. And here's the thing. I know that I'm very critical of the kind of crazy leftist transgender types that are trying to force all these pronouns that suck, and you know, I'll talk about that more in Property of Mind. But I'm very critical, and I think justifiably so, of the current transgender movement, quote unquote, as it is, because it's very totalitarian and authoritarian, and frankly, I think a lot of their conclusions are nonsensical. But in terms of property of body, I do think it's fair to say that if you own your body and you are a man who, whether you think it's normal or like something that should be glorified, or whether you think it's a mental illness or not, that's kind of irrelevant. But if there's a man who truly believes that he's a woman and he wants to like cut off his junk, which I don't get, okay? I will never understand, but that's fine. If he wants to cut off his junk, it's his junk to cut off. And similarly, in terms of, you know, someone wanting to use estrogen hormones or like taking testosterone or all that, you know, that's your right to do that. If you want to do that, if you're a woman and you want to grow a beard and like lose your tits and like have an Adam's apple, like, you know, more power to you. You can destroy your body. That's up to you. And I'll make another video going into the specifics of this, because when I say that, I'm still not talking about transgender children though. And I'm gonna make a whole other Property Manifesto video regarding children's rights and parents' rights in terms of my Property Manifesto and how that all comes into play. So I'm not gonna talk about underage transgender individuals at this time. I'll talk about that in that other video. So for adults who are aware of the consequences of their decisions, if they want to augment their body, they can do it. And I think that it's really hard for anyone to make arguments against this when it's so clearly okay for a woman to get a boob job or a nose job, right? We don't even question that a woman can do that. Personally, I think it's very self-hating to want to do all that work to your body, but it's not my choice because it's not my body. It's their property of body. If a woman wants bigger tits, she can get bigger tits. If a man thinks he's a woman and wants to cut off his dick, I mean, I don't, like I said, I don't get that. And frankly, I don't really even understand, like, even putting myself in the body of a man, like the thought of cutting off an organ like that, even if I had dysphoria, is just so crazy to me. But it's not my dick, right? They can cut it off if they want to cut it off. So that's part of the right to destroy your body. Now, the last stick in the 6-stick bundle that I've kind of been doing in this series is the right to convey. And this is one of the only things that really makes your property of body and your property of mind distinct from your personal property or your real property in terms of the rights you have in it. And the reason is, while in theory a right to convey exists in your body, it is literally impossible for such a conveyance to occur. To explain that further, just as I talked about previously how the right to possess is actually inherent in the fact that your consciousness and your body are connected, it's the same reason why you have no right to convey. And it makes sense because you can't separate your consciousness from your body. You can't sell it to someone else outright. No one else can own another human being. And it makes sense because your consciousness is attached to your body, and to a certain extent it's your consciousness which is really owning stuff, right? Like if my body is just my body without having a mind, you know, it can't really own anything because it's not capable of doing anything. It's the property of mind that actually animates the property of body. It's because of the intimate connection between your consciousness and your body that your property of body even exists. So as a permanent conveyance, it can't happen. It's impossible. But the way that the right to convey is actually manifested in your property of body is through your labor. And this is where we get into stuff like freedom of contract and minimum wage and all of that kind of stuff, because in effect, you're utilizing at least a portion of your right to convey whenever you're employed by anyone working, right? Because in effect what you're saying is, like, let's say I'm a coal miner, right? In effect what you're saying is, I am willing to give you the use of my body, right? My ingenuity with my hands, my industriousness, all of that, to go mine coal. I'm gonna use my property of body to mine coal, and then you'll pay me for that. So in effect, you're not selling your property of body. You can't convey the whole thing, right? In real property, you can convey the whole piece of land. But in property of body, what you can convey is use of your body. You can't convey the actual body itself. So in terms of land, if you want to do an equivalent, you couldn't sell the whole plot of land, but you could sell the ability for someone to come like farm on it, right? You're selling the use of your land. And that's the same thing that happens with your labor, because it's the part of you that actually is separable from your consciousness, and the part of your body that actually can be kind of quote unquote sold. So this is why freedom of contract is so important. And freedom of contract doesn't exist in the United States, and it's appalling that it does not, because it's a violation of your property of body. And the reason why it doesn't exist is, way back in the day, there was this case called Lockdown versus New York. This case is taught in law school as part of your constitutional law curriculum. And the reason they teach it is to show what a quote-unquote farce this case is. But pretty much, this case was a situation where there was a law that prohibited bakers from baking more than a certain number of hours in a day. Okay? And bakers were upset about this because, in effect, it limited how many hours they could work. And limiting how many hours people work limits how much money they can make, right? It limits their productivity, because we're saying you can only work for such and such hours. So this went all the way up to the Supreme Court. And at that time, the Supreme Court had more sense and actually said, you have freedom of contract, right? If you want to work longer hours, that's your freedom to decide. Or if you as an employee want to accept a job that has really longer hours or longer hours than that law, it's your freedom to do that. But like I said, this case is taught as if it's a joke, like as if it's one of the worst legal decisions that the Supreme Court has ever handed down, and it was overturned later. But the thing is, that case is actually crucially important and is so dead on right. You have a right to decide how much the labor that comes out of your property of body is worth, like how much you're willing to part with it for. But it also acknowledges that you have ownership in your body and your labor, and that no one else can decide those terms for you. It's a big deal. The freedom of contract is a big deal, but the reason they had to get rid of it is to promote their agenda, which says that you have to have all these minimum wage laws because, you know, these companies are exploiting workers. But the minimum wage in and of itself is a violation of the property of body, because it's a violation of the freedom of contract. And the reason why it's a violation is because who the hell is the government to say that if I want to take a job for $3 an hour, I can't take it? Seriously, no one's ever been able to answer me that question. Because here's the thing, I have a friend who is really wealthy, and she wanted to work at like an art gallery or something. And the art gallery, she ended up having to take no salary because the art gallery couldn't pay the actual minimum wage. So she ended up getting nothing. But here's the thing, that friend of mine is wealthy enough where, you know, whether she got nothing or $4 an hour or whatever, like, it doesn't matter to her. But she just wanted a little compensation, but it literally would be illegal for her to be paid $3 an hour. It's illegal. Can you imagine? I mean, I just think about when I was growing up in high school and stuff, how many more job opportunities I might have had if the people who were hiring me were allowed to pay me less than, I think at the time the minimum wage was like $7.50. But frankly, was my labor worth more than that at the time? Probably not. And all that it does to have a minimum wage is punch out the bottom ranks of the ladder and getting up to where you want to be in your career, right? It takes out the entry-level position. That's all it does. That's all it does. And it forces more employers to automate, which is why you see places like McDonald's and all these other places are putting in automation, because Unfortunately, cooking fries and taking orders in a drive-thru is not actually worth $15 an hour like most of these big cities are trying to push. So the minimum wage is a violation of your property of body rights because it violates your freedom of contract, which means that you don't get to have the final say and how much you're going to charge for your labor. So that's why the minimum wage is a problem. Now, the last thing I want to talk about in terms of the right to convey as it pertains to your property of body is prostitution. And I know this is really controversial, and I'm sure that I'll get a lot of pushback on this in general, but my main argument here is that if you have freedom of contract because you own your body and you can sell your body's labor through your right to convey, then you also can sell your body for sexual acts if you want. Personally, I would never do it. I think it's kind of a degrading form of sale of your own labor, but it is someone's body, their own body, right? If you're a woman and you're willing to sell what your body can provide a man in that regard, who am I to tell you that you can't? It's your body, right? You can use it that way. You can enjoy it, I guess, that way if you want, or destroy it that way if you want, but it's yours to use. And frankly, the right to exclude supports that too, because if they don't want to exclude these individuals from their body, that's up to them too. So the right to convey plus the right to exclude plus the right to enjoy and control and all that means that we can't stop people from being prostitutes. We just can't. It's their body and it's their freedom of contract that's associated with their property of body. So those are my thoughts on prostitution. Some people want to say that it's not voluntary because it's like their situation forces them into it, but I don't really buy that. If you don't want to sell your body, you don't have to. There's always a way that you could get out of a bad situation without having to let someone pay you for sex. Like, I really think that's pretty degrading to women to tell them that, you know, oh, the only reason you're a prostitute is because you were forced into it. It's like, I think women can make their own choices sometimes. I'm pretty sure that a lot of women choose that. So that's their choice, and that's the last thing I wanted to talk about with the right to convey. The last thing I want to talk about, and this kind of is the ultimate summation of all 6 of the sticks in the bundle into one right, which is your right to your life, okay? Because if somebody kills you, all 6 of those sticks are gone, right? If you're dead, you're not possessing your body because your consciousness is gone. You can't control it because your consciousness is gone. You certainly can't enjoy it. You can't exclude from it. I mean, if someone kills you, that is a de facto violation, and the most egregious de facto violation of all 6 sticks in the bundle of sticks as it pertains to your property of body. So, and like I said, in terms of abortion, I'm going to do a whole video on that clarifies my specific stance on abortion in terms of the Property Manifesto, so I'm not going to get into all of that today. But the reason why murder and other things like that are punished so severely in our society is because we all understand that that is the ultimate violation of your property of body, to kill you, right? There's no punishment greater than the punishment for a murder, especially one that's planned out. So in our culture, and thank God for this, because it means that we're at least getting something right, in our culture, we have decided that the property of body is important enough that if someone takes it away, and specifically if someone plans to take it away, we will punish them more than any other kind of criminal in our culture. And that just shows how important the property of body is to us. Anyway, I know this has been a long video, but there's a lot in property of body that we needed to cover. And frankly, my property of mind video might be even longer than this one because there's so much to unpack there. But I so appreciate all of you for listening and for getting through this entire video. You have no idea how much it means to me that there are individuals out there who care about this message, because It really will end up being my life's work to promote these ideas, and thank you so much for being a part of that process. I hope you'll like and subscribe below, and I'll see you in the next one.
I just want to start a flame in your heart.